So let's not talk about New South Wales and get into the machinations of New South Wales. We'll save that for later in the show because it bores people, right? But let's talk about red everywhere. This is the dream as the Labor lady, total control everywhere. But that comes with its own pressures. Okay, for a year or two you can blame the former mob, but, well, if everything seems to be the way it is, you're going to get total control for a while. You've got to fix everything, right?
Well, look, let's not disrespect Tassie. You know, of course, they still continue to have a Conservative government and the voters always get it right. I think that's the fundamental rule of democracy. It was a great win for Chris Minns this weekend, third time since the Second World War, and therefore really historic. This is an unusual thing. And I think when we look around Australia and see so many Labor governments, perhaps people start to make assumptions about Labor being the natural party of government. But we have to recall, in states like New South Wales, this is an extremely unusual event.
But okay, but what about the pressures though, Warren, when once the partisan rancor is taken out of a meeting of everyone, what I think is going to be part of the way this is going to play is pretty easy, right? Albo says, here's the 10-year funding deal on schools, here's the 10-year funding deal on health, here's the 10-year funding deal on... He gets to turn around at the next federal election and say, I ended the climate wars, I ended the funding wars, all of that stuff. But the truth is, there's nowhere to hide anymore. Like, it's all theirs. The people have decided that we want one team running everything. So if it's all still rooted in 2 years' time or 4 years' time, there's nowhere to look other than one mob.
Well, that's true. First of all, Linda and I, we both know Chris Minns, and we respect him in his... look, I've got a lot of respect for him, and he will do, hopefully, he will do a great job, because New South Wales needs to have a great job. But you're right. When you and Linda's right as well, in that in democracy, the people get what they want, and they always get what they want. The issue for me
about it, I'm just saying that when you've got the blank check, you've got everyone around the room already pre-agreed.
Yeah, and this is where you look at states like Queensland and Victoria and that. When you look at the bail laws and when you look at other things and that, you can't blame anyone else, because you have actually appointed the judges. You have actually appointed the magistrates. And so, this is not in regard to Chris, because he's only been there 5 seconds, but I'm talking about longer term of governments. You can't go around blaming other people, because like in the Northern Territory, they're talking about the bail laws up there. Well, the bail laws, you can make it impossible to get a bail, but unless the magistrates and the judges agree with you,
absolutely,
then it's not going to happen. And it's the governments that appoint them, so they can't get away from that.
But what's fascinating here is, and again, there's shades of Labor, and one's more left and one's more right, but let's just take it from the top here, right? I believe they'll legalise cannabis sooner rather than later, because, remember, they need that for the vote in the upper house in Victoria. They need it for the vote in the New South Wales Parliament. Get ready for that to be the case. In Queensland, the decriminalisation of possession. In the ACT, there's the pill testing. Expect all of this stuff just to become national. The raising of the age of criminal responsibility is something Victoria wants to do. Now they're going to be sitting in a room where basically all will agree, Gary. So again, if you're somebody who believes totally in the agenda and thinks Labor's in 100% the right place, well, guess what? When nobody's in the room to disagree with you, no disrespect to the Tasmanian Premier, but still, when nobody's in the room to disagree with you, it's all full steam ahead. If you don't think that's the right way to go, people need to know where we're going to go.
Yeah, but which Labor are you talking about, Paul? I mean, the Victorian government's the most left-wing state government in Australia. The ACT government, well, it's a Greens government. It's a Labor Greens government. The Northern Territory's lost complete control of the place. Western Australia kind of runs itself. It doesn't matter who's in charge. South Australia, well, a big yawn, but I must say that Peter Malinauskas attracted a lot of Liberal voters because they saw him as the most right-wing, centre-right leader in that contest with whatever that bloke's name was. And I think the same thing happened in New South Wales yesterday. I don't think anybody in New South Wales was saying, I can't change the government because everything's going to be red. I think they voted because there was an incompetence associated with what is now the former government, and Minns doing not saying much, looked the most competent of the two teams. And good luck and congratulations to him. But Paul, the problem will be that he'll have to do a sop to the left to keep him, from the right happy. So that'll be the trade-off, and the people in New South Wales get a chance to vote again in 4 years' time. But in the meantime, I'm with Warren. I mean, I come down from Brisbane to Sydney and all I see is action and infrastructure and stuff being done. So full tick to the Berejiklian and Perrottet governments for that. In Queensland, they just produce brochures. They don't do much.
Well, they'll have to build something by 2032, but we'll see what happens. But I'm sure their assumption is that they'll be working through. It'll be Palaszczuk, then it, of course, will be the deputy, then it'll be Grace. We'll see what happens, because they think they can rule forever. But interestingly today, about that question of candidate selection, all the rest of it, LNP and David Crucifulli, 18 months out, basically the halfway point of the run in Queensland, has started to name candidates. Again, it's just fundamental. Yeah. It's 101, right? Now, again, I understand Liberal Party factionalism, blah, 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 blah. But I'm just saying, let's go back to first principles, which is get your ducks in a row to go and have a fight.
I don't understand it.
And also get good people. Also get good people, right? And I think that is what is so interesting. I know you don't want to talk about it a lot, but the New South Wales victory on the weekend was...
It's not because I don't want to talk about it. It's just literally more people were watching in Melbourne than in Sydney last night.
Labor got swings to it right across the state. You know, if you think about in the inner city in Sydney, where I'm from, Philippa Scott in Balmain, huge swings to her, the Labor candidate against the Greens, such that she's still in the race for maybe taking that seat back from the Greens. If you go out to Western Sydney, we got very popular Lord Mayor of Parramatta, Donna Davis, elected again, massive swings, and Lyndall House, and maybe going to hold on. Looks like she's going to hold on for Labor in Ryde, really big swings. Outer Western Sydney, Penrith, and some of those, very outer Western Sydney areas, Labor again got Western
Goulburn,
big swings.
Monaro.
And then in the regions, right, we're taking seats potentially in Goulburn, we're holding on to seats like Bega, we're winning the South Coast. We got swings to Labor in every part of the state, giving it an incredibly solid bedrock for the future.
But Warren, that's a bloke who's...
Well, I was the Deputy Mayor of Dubbo at the time when, in 1999, when Labor, you could drive from Sydney to Broken Hill and you never went through a coalition seat.
Yes.
So, the issue, it's about... You've got to get candidates, and you've got to get credible candidates. Here were the Libs right up until a few weeks before the election, still looking for candidates. And this is the stupid, and that happened in the federal election as well. They were still looking for candidates. That is a joke, And this is no. I like Chris Binns. I love Dominic Perrottet. He was a great bloke, and that, but you can't run a party like that. You've got to get people in early. You've got to get credible candidates. And this is the one thing I said when I was president of the Labor Party. You've got to focus on the people. Yeah. It's not your internal factions. It is not your. It's not your politics. It is about what do people want? What are their needs? And that's what they've got to focus on.